You know, when you think about the Bible, you probably picture stories about faith, morality, right? Maybe some big epic battles. But what if I told you there's a part that reads almost like a Forbes billionaire list? Today, we're digging into the story of King Solomon and the incredible secret hidden inside all of his gold.
And that's what makes this so fascinating, right? It's a real puzzle. The biblical authors go into painstaking detail about Solomon's finances, his investments, his treasures. So the big question isn't just what he owned, but why on earth they wanted us to know every single detail. It's almost like they were leaving us a trail of breadcrumbs.
And the first big clue, it's this absolutely mind-boggling number, 666 talents of gold. Now get this, that wasn't his total net worth. That was his annual income. We're talking hundreds of millions, maybe even billions of dollars in today's money, coming in every single year. But as you're about to see, this number isn't just about showing off, it's a huge piece of the puzzle.
So to really get this story, we first have to try and wrap our heads around the sheer scale of Solomon's kingdom. I mean, the prosperity being described here is almost hard to imagine, even for us.
This one line from the text just says it all. Can you picture a world where silver, a precious metal, is so plentiful that people treat it like common gravel on the street? That's the world being painted for us. Gold was just pouring into the kingdom, marking the absolute peak of Israel's golden age. This was a nation at the height of its power.
Which of course brings us right back to our main question. Is this just a historical flex, a king showing off how rich he is? Or is all this gold and silver supposed to be a symbol, something pointing to a much bigger idea? The writers are definitely trying to get our attention.
And our next big clue doesn't come in a treasure chest. It arrives in the form of a very high-profile visitor. A powerful queen from a faraway land who isn't there for a trade deal, but for something she considers way more valuable.
We're talking about the Queen of Sheba. She hears these rumors, these whispers, about Solomon's unbelievable wisdom, and she's not going to just take someone's word for it. She loads up this massive caravan with gold and rare spices and travels from what they consider the literal ends of the earth, just to see if this guy is the real deal. Her mission wasn't about wealth, it was about truth.
So after she tests Solomon with all her hardest questions and sees the perfect harmony of his kingdom, she has this incredible aha moment, an epiphany. And what she says next is the theological hinge of the entire story. See, she doesn't praise Solomon's brilliance. She praises Solomon's God. She suddenly gets it. The throne Solomon sits on, it doesn't really belong to him. And this gets to the heart of a huge idea in this part of the Bible: theocracy. What's wild is that it takes an outsider, the Queen of Sheba, to see it with crystal clarity. Solomon isn't just a king who happens to be religious. He's a king sitting on God's throne, acting as God's representative. So the kingdom's incredible success, that's a direct reflection of its true ruler.
Okay, so with that in mind, let's look at all that gold again. Suddenly it's not about human pride anymore, is it? It becomes this glittering, tangible proof that a divine promise has been kept.
The writers here do something really clever, literarily speaking. It's like they put bookends on the story. Way back in chapter 1, at the start of his reign, God promises Solomon not just wisdom, but also incredible wealth and honor. And now, here in chapter 9, the story finishes with a detailed audit showing how that promise was fulfilled, right down to the last piece of gold. It's a perfect circle.
And here's a fascinating detail. If you read the account of Solomon over in the Book of Kings, you get a slightly different vibe. The writer of Kings kind of hints that all this wealth, all these foreign connections, are starting to corrupt Solomon. But here, in Chronicles, the author filters the story to make one laser-focused point. This wealth isn't a temptation, it's the visible, undeniable proof of God's faithfulness.
So the treasures themselves start to feel like symbols. Those huge gold shields, they weren't for battle, they were for parades. It was a statement that an era of perfect peace, or shalom, had arrived. That magnificent ivory throne symbolized the king's job was to bring about God's perfect justice on earth. The whole kingdom was meant to be a little snapshot of the abundance of Eden restored.
But just when you think the picture is complete, just when it's all tied up with a nice golden bow, we find out something stunning. The author of Chronicles made a deliberate, massive omission, a kind of theological edit that changes absolutely everything.
Because, well, if you've read the other accounts of Solomon's life, you know there's a dark side. You know this golden age does not have a happy ending. And yet, here in Chronicles, there's just silence.
The Book of Kings tells us the whole tragic story. In his later years, Solomon's heart turned away from God. He married hundreds of foreign women, built temples to their gods, and broke the very laws meant to protect Israel's kings. I mean, it was a catastrophic failure, and none of it, not a word, is mentioned here.
Now this is so crucial. The author isn't trying to hide the truth or sweep some embarrassing history under the rug. This is a very intentional editorial choice. It's designed to make a profound theological point. He's not telling us the biography of a man, he's building a portrait of an idea.
See, you've got to remember who the author was writing for, the people of Israel, who had just come back from this devastating exile. Their nation was in ruins, their hope was shot. They needed a vision of what a truly faithful kingdom was supposed to look like. So, the author gives them this edited, perfected version of Solomon as a blueprint for the ideal king. He's showing them what the true Messiah, the one they were still waiting for, would really be like. Solomon was just the shadow.
And that brings us to the final reveal, where all the clues, the wealth, the wisdom, and even the story's missing pieces all point toward one single person.
Honestly, the best way to think about it is like this. Solomon's entire kingdom, with all its peace and prosperity, was basically just a movie trailer. It was a short, dazzling preview of the main feature that was still to come. It was designed to give you a taste of the real thing and just leave you wanting more. Centuries later, Jesus himself makes this connection. When people are questioning his wisdom, he brings up the Queen of Sheba and says, essentially, you think Solomon was wise? She came from the ends of the earth for his wisdom. But I'm telling you, something far greater is right here in front of you now.
And this really breaks it all down, doesn't it? The shadow versus the reality. Solomon's kingdom offered earthly wealth from a fancy ivory throne, but that was temporary. The kingdom of Christ offers spiritual riches, grace, forgiveness, and an eternal peace, all established from a throne that happened to be a wooden cross.
So in the end, that obsessive accounting of Solomon's gold wasn't really about the gold at all. It was a carefully crafted signpost. It was designed to paint a picture of a perfect kingdom under a perfect king, to stir up a longing for the one who could actually pull it off, a king whose treasures would never fade and whose kingdom would never end.
And that leaves us with a final thought. The Queen of Sheba traveled halfway across the known world because she heard a rumor of a life-changing wisdom. The claim of the Bible is that this same wisdom is embodied in a person who is still calling out to people today. So the real question is, what's our response going to be?